The shocking announcement. The city of New Orion was never quiet. It was the largest human settlement beyond Earth, built on Mars as a symbol of human progress. Skyscrapers touched the sky, transport drones buzzed like bees, and giant screens displayed news from across the galaxy. But today, the city was quieter than usual. People stood still, eyes wide, mouths open, staring at the screens. Princess Zyra of the Zarth Empire stood behind a podium in a grand hall. Her silver skin shimmered under the lights, and her bright violet eyes reflected nervousness. The Zarth were a proud, ancient race who once ruled half the galaxy. Now, they were Earth's closest allies. The princess took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. Her voice was clear but shaky. People of Earth, people of Mars, and citizens of the Galactic Union, I have an announcement. The crowd on Mars, Earth, and every colony across the solar system watched with curiosity. I am with child, she said softly. Gasps filled the air. Zyra gripped the podium tighter. And the father is human. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, the city of New Orion exploded with noise. People shouted, news drones zoomed closer, and the media scrambled for more information. Across the galaxy, millions of beings reacted with shock. Commander Jake Matthews stood frozen in his small apartment, his coffee mug slipping from his hand and shattering on the floor. He was the father. He hadn't expected this. No one had. Jake was a retired military officer who now worked as a diplomat for the Earth Council. He remembered the time he met Zyra during peace talks on Titan Station. They had shared conversations about duty, culture, and the loneliness of leadership. They had grown close. But now, this? Jake's phone buzzed. It was his boss, Director Stevens. Matthews, get to Command HQ. Now. Jake grabbed his jacket and ran out the door. The news spread faster than light. Humans debated in cafes and bars. Alien communities sent messages of confusion and curiosity. No species had ever heard of a Zarth and a human having a child. Was it even possible? Meanwhile, in Earth Council Command, Jake walked into a room filled with tense faces. Director Stevens, an older man with sharp eyes, pointed to a chair. Explain, Matthews, Stevens demanded. Jake ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know she would announce it, he said truthfully. A younger officer whispered, Why now? Why so suddenly? Director Stevens turned to the room. This announcement might cause panic. The Zarth elders always warned about species mixing. They believe it invites danger. Jake frowned. Danger from what? Stevens hesitated. Legends. Ancient enemies who once destroyed worlds that try to unite. The Voidborn. Jake's heart raced. He remembered Zyra mentioning that name once, long ago. You don't believe in ghost stories, do you? Before Stevens could reply, the lights flickered. The screens went static, then showed a dark symbol, a black circle with a single red eye in the center. A deep mechanical voice spoke through every device on Earth, Mars, and the colonies. The child must not be born. The message repeated 3 times, then disappeared. The room fell into stunned silence. Jake's phone buzzed. A new text message appeared from an unknown number. They are coming. On Zarth Prime, Princess Zyra stood by a window overlooking her palace gardens. She had seen the broadcast. Fear tightened her chest. She touched her stomach, feeling the faint warmth of the life growing inside her. A soft knock came from the door. Her advisor, Elder Karen, stepped in. His pale eyes were grim. The Voidborn know, he said. Zyra's hands trembled. I thought they were just myths. Karen shook his head. They are real, and they fear your child. Zyra looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Voidborn were watching. The ancient enemy, the destroyers of worlds. She whispered softly, Jake, we are not ready for this. In the Mars Command Center, panic spread. Officials shouted into phones, demanding answers. Jake stood still, the message repeating in his mind. The child must not be born. He turned to Stevens. We need to get to her. Now. Stevens nodded. We're preparing a ship. But be careful, Commander. If the Voidborn are real, they won't stop. Jake clenched his fists. He had faced war before, but this was different. This was about his child. A child the universe seemed afraid of. Outside the command center, crowds gathered around screens, watching endless news reports. Human and alien DNA. Impossible, said one scientist. This child is a sign. Unity, said a hopeful voice. No, whispered an old man, staring at the sky. It's a sign of war. High above Mars, in the darkness of space, unknown ships with black hulls glided silently toward the planet. Their red eyes glowed like hungry predators. The hunt had begun. The hidden enemy. The universe had always been vast and full of mysteries. But now it was filled with something more. Fear. Jake Matthews stared at the blinking cursor on his communication tablet. The message remained there, simple yet terrifying. They are coming. His heart pounded as he stood in Mars Command Center. The sleek metallic walls, usually buzzing with calm voices and controlled tension, were now filled with frantic activity. Officers barked orders, analysts scanned the skies, and the planetary defense grid had been activated for the first time in decades. Outside, the Martian sky glowed red as usual, but tonight it felt different. Something was coming, and Jake had no idea how to fight it. Sir, a young officer called. We've detected multiple unidentified objects near Jupiter. They're just watching. Jake leaned over the holographic display. Several dark shapes hovered near Jupiter's orbit, motionless, like predators sizing up prey. No communication, no movement, just silent observation. Any ID? Jake asked. No known configuration, sir. Their hulls absorb every signal we send. No response to hails either. Jake felt the weight of something ancient pressing down on them. The Voidborn, he whispered. The officer looked confused. Sir. Nothing, Jake said quickly. Just keep me updated. He turned away and dialed Syra's secure frequency. The screen blinked for several long seconds before she appeared. Her face was pale, and her eyes glistened with worry. Jake, she breathed. You saw the message. Yeah, I'm coming to get you, he said firmly. No, Jake, she said, voice trembling. The Voidborn. They've already arrived on Zarth Prime. Zarth Prime was a planet of endless golden skies and tall crystal cities. But tonight, those skies were filled with black, needle-shaped ships that hovered without sound or light. They cast long, eerie shadows across the ground. Citizens gathered in fear as the palace guard scrambled to raise energy shields. In her private chamber, Princess Zyra stood with Elder Karen beside her. The ancient advisor clutched an old, worn medallion with strange carvings. They never left, Karen whispered. We were fools to forget them. Zyra placed a protective hand on her stomach. Why do they want the child? Karen closed his eyes, gathering his thoughts. The legends say the Voidborn serve a force beyond time. They believe that when different species unite to create life, it disrupts the balance of the cosmos. The child represents unity, something the Voidborn fear. Zyra's breath caught. But it's just a baby. Karen shook his head. Not just any baby. The first of its kind. A bridge between worlds. Suddenly, the palace shook violently. Alarms blared. The walls shimmered as defensive shields activated. Outside, a massive black ship descended over the palace, its red eye-like core glowing brighter. A booming voice resonated through the city. Surrender the child, or we will burn this world. Zyra's heart froze. The Voidborn had come for her unborn child. On Mars, Jake's mind raced as Zyra described the situation. I'm on my way, he said. How? Zyra asked, voice tight with fear. "I have contacts," Jake replied. "Old war friends. We'll get you out of there." He disconnected and turned to Stevens. "I need a ship. A fast one." Stevens hesitated. "That planet is surrounded. You won't survive." "I have to try," Jake growled. The director nodded slowly. "I'll get you a stealth cruiser. But if the Voidborn are real, you're flying into death." Jake gave a grim smile. "I've done that before." The Raven was a black, sleek stealth ship designed for covert operations during the Titan Rebellion. Jake hadn't piloted one in years, but his muscle memory kicked in the moment he sat in the pilot's seat. He activated the AI core. "System online," said a smooth voice. "Welcome, Commander Matthews. Call me Echo." "Echo, set a course for Zarth Prime. Maximum stealth." "Course set," Echo responded. "But Commander, I must warn you. Unknown vessels have deployed gravitational nets around the planet. Probability of successful infiltration, 24%. "Better odds than usual," Jake muttered, gripping the controls. The ship shot forward, slipping into the darkness of space. On Zarth Prime, the palace shook again. Kyra stood in the command chamber with Charon and Captain Rylos, the head of palace security. "The shields won't last," Rylos said. "We have evacuation tunnels, but the Voidborn are already scanning the ground." Zara knew she couldn't run forever. The Voidborn wanted the child, her child, and they would stop at nothing to get it. A distant explosion rattled the room. The lights flickered. Charon tightened his grip on the medallion. "Princess, there is an ancient place beneath the palace, a sanctuary built by our ancestors during the last Voidborn War. They said it was protected by cosmic energy that confuses their sensors. Take me there," Zyra ordered. The group moved quickly through hidden corridors. As they descended deeper into the palace, the hum of the battle above grew fainter. Finally, they reached a vast underground chamber. In the center was a stone-like platform with glowing silver veins. Charon placed the medallion in a small slot on the platform. The ground vibrated, and a soft, blue dome of light appeared around Zyra. Suddenly, the chamber's ceiling exploded. Black-clad figures with glowing red eyes dropped through the opening. "Protect the princess," Rylos shouted, firing his plasma rifle. Zyra crouched low, her heart racing. The Voidborn soldiers advanced like shadows, silent and fast. A figure stepped forward, taller than the others. Its black armor pulsed with red veins, and its face was hidden behind a smooth, reflective visor. It raised one clawed hand toward Zyra. "The child is a threat to the balance," the creature said in a mechanical voice. "Surrender now." Zyra clenched her fists. "Never." The Voidborn leader tilted its head. "Then you will all die." Before it could strike, the blue dome crackled with energy. The leader staggered back. The dome flared brighter, forming a protective barrier around Zyra. The creature growled and gestured to its soldiers. They fired weapons at the barrier, but the energy absorbed every blast. Charon collapsed to his knees. "The sanctuary will not hold forever," he gasped. "But it gives us time." "Time for what?" I asked. A distant roar echoed through the chamber as something streaked through the sky above. "For him," Charon whispered. "For the father." In orbit above Zarth Prime, the Raven pierced through the Voidborn defenses, dodging gravitational nets and energy blasts. Jake's jaw tightened as he pushed the ship to its limits. "Echo," he said through clenched teeth, "find the princess." Locating biosignature, the AI responded. "Target found. Underground chamber. Palace coordinates locked." Jake armed the ship's pulse cannons. "Hang on, Zyra," he muttered. "I'm coming." The Voidborn fleet swarmed around him. The enemy had ancient power, but Jake Matthews had something more. The determination of a father who would fight the universe itself to protect his child. The silent siege. The void of space was vast and silent, yet tonight it was filled with whispers. Unseen forces moved beyond human comprehension. Ancient watchers observed with patient, calculating eyes. The Voidborn, the oldest enemy of interspecies unity, had returned. And their target was not a fleet, not a planet, but an unborn child, the first human-Zarth hybrid. Jake Matthews gripped the controls of the Raven as it screamed through the dense atmosphere of Zarth Prime. His knuckles turned white, his breathing shallow. The holographic display showed dozens of hostile signatures swarming the palace like dark, mechanical vultures. "Echo, activate electromagnetic cloak," Jake ordered. "Activating cloak," the AI responded. Enemy sensors temporarily disrupted. But, Commander, the Voidborn scanning technology is highly adaptive. We have minutes before they recalibrate. "Minutes are all I need," Jake muttered. The ship dove toward the palace grounds, weaving between crimson energy blasts that lit up the night sky. The main spire of the palace cracked and collapsed as the Voidborn pressed their attack. Jake clenched his jaw. He needed to move faster. Beneath the palace, Princess Zarth sat within the glowing dome of the sanctuary. Her heart raced. The air was thick with tension. Outside the barrier, the Voidborn soldiers circled like predators around a wounded animal. Their sleek black armor pulsed with faint red veins, like living shadows given form. Elder Karen knelt beside her, his breathing labored. His ancient hands clutched the medallion embedded in the stone platform. Sweat dripped from his forehead. "How much longer can this shield last?" Kyra asked. Karen winced. "The sanctuary draws power from the cosmic veins beneath the palace. But the Voidborn, they are disrupting the flow. Minutes, perhaps less." Zyra's hand instinctively cradled her stomach. The faint warmth of the life within her pulsed, stronger now, almost in sync with the sanctuary's energy field. She could feel the child's presence, a soft, curious awareness. Suddenly, the child kicked, and the blue dome around her brightened. Karen's eyes widened. The child, it's responding to the energy source. It's amplifying it. Zira stared at the glowing dome. "What does that mean?" "The legend spoke of this," Karen whispered. "A child born of two worlds, capable of bridging cosmic forces. The Voidborn fear this, and now they know it is true." Outside the barrier, the Voidborn leader stepped forward. Its helmet reflected the shimmering light. It placed one hand on the dome. The energy crackled and hissed. "The child is the anomaly," the creature said, voice hollow and cold. "Surrender it, and your people will live." Zidra met its gaze through the barrier. "Never." The creature tilted its head. "You believe you fight for life, but you fight for chaos. Your child will break the balance. The Voidborn will not allow it." The dome crackled violently. The light flickered. Suddenly, a deep hum filled the chamber. The Voidborn soldiers turned toward the ceiling. Zidra felt the vibration in the floor. "Jake," she whispered. Above the palace, the Raven unleashed a barrage of EMP rounds. Each pulse detonated with a silent, blinding burst. The Voidborn ships faltered, their crimson eyes flickering. Jake used the distraction to angle the ship toward the palace courtyard. "Echo, land us directly above that energy signature," Jake ordered. Adjusting trajectory. "Hold on, Commander," the AI warned. The ship shuddered as it pierced through layers of defensive grids. Jake gritted his teeth. The palace roof gave way with a deafening crack as the Raven descended into the underground chamber. The hull groaned as it touched down. The rear hatch opened with a hiss. Jake grabbed his plasma rifle and sprinted into the chamber. The Voidborn turned toward the ship. Jake fired in controlled bursts, striking two soldiers with precise shots. Their armor cracked, and they collapsed with mechanical shrieks. "Kyra," Jake shouted. "Here." Her voice came from the glowing dome. Jake saw her crouched beside Elder Karen. The elder was slumped over, his hand still gripping the medallion. Jake moved toward her, firing as he went. The Voidborn leader turned and raised an arm. A crimson blast shot from its palm. Jake dove, barely avoiding the energy beam. It struck the stone floor, melting it instantly. "Jake!" Cyrus screamed. Jake rolled and fired. The blast hit the leader's helmet, shattering the visor. The creature staggered back, revealing its face. It wasn't flesh. The head beneath was a smooth, featureless surface with a single glowing core where eyes should be. The creature steadied itself and spoke. "You cannot stop the balance." The blue dome crackled, growing unstable. The medallion in Charon's hands vibrated wildly. Zara clutched her stomach. The child kicked again, and the dome flared brighter. The void-born soldiers faltered, recoiling from the surge. Jake knelt beside her. "We need to move now." Charon coughed weakly. "The sanctuary will not hold. The child is the key. Take the medallion." Jake hesitated but grabbed the medallion. It felt unnaturally warm. The blue dome collapsed. The void-born surged forward. Jake fired at the leader while pulling Syra to her feet. "Move." They sprinted toward the open hatch of the Raven. The void-born fired, crimson bolts scorching the walls. The void-born leader raised its hand again, but then paused. It tilted its head as though hearing something unseen. Then it whispered, "They are here." Jake didn't stop to ask what that meant. He shoved Syra into the ship and jumped in after her. "Echo, take off." The ship's engines roared. The Raven shot upward through the shattered ceiling. In orbit, chaos reigned. The void-born fleet remained in position, but now hundreds of new contacts appeared on the scanners. Sleek, angular ships of unknown origin. They materialized from shimmering rifts surrounding the void-born vessels. On the Raven's display, a message appeared in glowing symbols that shifted and reformed into human letters. "The key must survive. Proceed to Sol's Edge." Jake read the message aloud. "Echo, who sent this?" "Unknown," the AI said, "but the energy signature matches no known civilization." Zira gasped, clutching Jake's arm. The Elder's prophecy. When the child was revealed, the Watchers would return. "The Watchers?" Jake asked. "Ancient beings. Even the Voidborn feared them." On the screen, the strange new ships opened fire. Blinding, silver beams struck the Voidborn fleet. The black vessels shattered like glass. The Raven accelerated toward the outer edge of the solar system. In the silence, Zyra felt the child shift again. A soft, clear voice echoed in her mind. "They are watching." The race against time. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the Raven's cockpit, cold and silent. Jake Matthews sat in the pilot's chair, eyes fixed on the swirling anomalies ahead. Massive glowing rifts crackled with faint silver energy near the edge of the solar system. Sol's Edge, as the unknown message had instructed. He had seen many strange things in his military career, but this was different. Zyra sat beside him, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. Her usually calm face showed unease. The child within her stirred more often now, reacting to the strange energies around them. The holographic display flickered. Echo, the AI, spoke with a cautious tone. "Commander, the gravitational distortions ahead are unusual. These anomalies appear to bend space-time in ways we don't fully understand." "Can we pass through?" Jake asked. "Possibly," Echo said, "but there is a 38% chance the ship will be torn apart." "Comforting," Jake muttered. Zira shifted uncomfortably. "The Watchers are here," she said softly. Jake turned to her. "How do you know?" She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes seemed distant, as if listening to something beyond normal senses. "I can feel them, through the child. Their presence is like a whisper in the wind. They're waiting." Jake exhaled slowly. The Voidborn had attacked because of the child. And now these so-called Watchers had appeared, wiping out an entire Voidborn fleet with frightening ease. If even the ancient Voidborn feared them, who were they really? "Echo, scan for Voidborn activity," Jake ordered. "Scanning," the AI responded. The screen shifted, displaying a map of the solar system. Tiny red dots clustered around Jupiter and Mars. But then, beyond Neptune, larger signals appeared. Voidborne pursuit fleet detected, Echo announced. 12 capital-class vessels and 50 interceptors. Estimated time to intercept, 26 minutes. Jake cursed. They're still coming, even after losing their main force. Zyra tightened her grip on the armrest. They won't stop until the child is gone. Or we are. Then we make sure they don't catch us, Jake said, adjusting the controls. The ship accelerated toward the shimmering anomaly at Sol's edge. The pursuit begins. The Raven shot through space, its engines humming with quiet urgency. Behind them, the Voidborne interceptors closed in. Their black hulls absorbed light, making them almost invisible against the stars. Only their glowing red eyes gave them away. Inside the ship, alarms blared. "Commander, enemy vessels accelerating," Echo reported. "They will reach weapons range in 17 minutes. Jake gripped the controls. "We need more speed." "Engines already at 110% capacity," Echo said. "Pushing further may cause critical failure." "Push anyway," Jake growled. The ship's frame shuddered as power surged through its systems. Zyra stood and paced the narrow cabin, her eyes unfocused. "The Voidborne believe the child is dangerous," she said aloud, more to herself than Jake. "That this life will break their so-called balance." Jake shot her a glance. "Do you know what that means? This balance?" Shook her head. "The ancient records speak of a cosmic balance that maintains harmony between worlds. The Voidborne claim hybrid life disrupts it. They believe unity between species is unnatural." Jake gave a bitter laugh. "Unity's unnatural. Right. That explains why they use fear to keep everyone apart." Zyra stopped and touched her stomach. "But the child, this child represents more than unity. It represents something the Voidborne can't control." The ship lurched as distant enemy blasts rattled the energy shields. "Echo, status?" Jake asked. "Shields at 82% and falling," the eye replied. "Voidborne fleet now within tactical firing range. Suggest evasive maneuvers." Jake's mind raced. They couldn't outrun the Voidborne forever, and the anomaly ahead might destroy them. But it was their only hope. "Prepare for a micro-warp jump," Jake ordered. "Target the center of the anomaly. Warning, warp fields are unstable near gravitational distortions," Echo said. "Probability of successful jump, 28%. Jake smiled grimly. "Better than zero. Do it." The Voidborne advance. Behind them, the lead Voidborne ship surged forward. Its captain, a being known only as Watcher Prime, watched the human craft through crimson data streams. The child's energy signature pulsed like a beacon to their scanners. "They flee toward the edge," said a drone voice from the communication channel. "They seek the Watchers," Prime responded. "The anomaly will not protect them. Fire all disruptors." The fleet unleashed a coordinated barrage of crimson beams. The fabric of space trembled as energy streaked toward the fleeing human ship. The jump. Inside the Raven, time seemed to slow. Echo counted down the jump sequence. 3, 2, 1. The warp engines activated. Space twisted around the craft, stretching into a tunnel of chaotic light. The anomaly loomed ahead, swirling like a liquid mirror. The Voidborne disruptor beams struck the Raven at the same moment it entered the anomaly. The ship bucked violently. Sparks flew from the control panels. Jake was thrown against his seat. Zyra collapsed, clutching her stomach as the child within stirred forcefully. "Echo," Jake shouted. No response. The AI's voice crackled. The swirling anomaly consumed the ship, folding it into a pocket of distorted reality. The hidden dimension. The Raven emerged into an unfamiliar starfield. The screens showed no recognizable constellations, no familiar celestial markers. The surrounding space shimmered like a vast ocean of liquid silver. "Where are we?" Jake asked, panting. Echo's voice returned, weak but functional. Unknown space. Scans detect gravitational patterns inconsistent with known universe parameters. Sarah gasped and pointed out the window. Ahead, colossal structures floated through the void. Massive, ring-like constructs turned slowly, emitting soft pulses of blue energy. At the center of the largest ring hovered a vast, translucent sphere the size of a small moon. Inside it swirled entire galaxies in miniature, like a cosmic observatory. "Are those ships?" Jake asked. "No," Zyra whispered. "Those are the Watchers." The range shifted, and streams of light extended from the central sphere toward the Raven. The ship trembled but held steady as the light enveloped it. A voice resonated through the ship, deep and ancient. "The key has arrived. The trial begins." Jake and Sarah exchanged a nervous glance. The child within her kicked again. "Trial," Jake repeated. "What trial?" The voice responded. "The trial of balance. Life has chosen unity. The Voidborn resist. The child is the bridge. If the bridge fails, the balance will shatter. Prepare." Suddenly, alarms blared again. Echo's voice trembled. "Commander, Voidborn fleet has followed us into the anomaly." Jake turned to the window. Beyond the shimmering rings, black ships materialized. The Voidborn had found them. The sphere's energy intensified, and the Watcher's voice echoed once more. "The enemy approaches. The trial begins now. Defend the bridge." The Raven's control panels lit up as unknown systems activated. Jake grasped the controls. "Looks like we're not done yet," he said grimly. Outside, the Voidborn fleet unleashed their weapons toward the sphere. The fate of unity, of life itself, hung in the balance. The betrayal. The void shimmered like liquid mercury as the Raven hovered in the strange realm beyond Sol's edge. Gigantic, ring-like structures floated around the ship, slowly rotating as beams of blue energy pulsed from their cores. The largest sphere, filled with miniature swirling galaxies, glowed brighter with each passing second. Jake Matthews tightened his grip on the controls, heart racing. The Watcher's voice still echoed in his mind. "The trial begins. Defend the bridge." The bridge, their unborn child. Zyra sat beside him, pale and tense. Her hands cradled her stomach, and her eyes, usually calm and composed, were filled with uncertainty. The baby within her stirred again, its presence almost palpable in the charged atmosphere. "Echo," Jake said, trying to steady his voice. "Status on the Voidborn fleet." The AI responded with a crackle of static. "Voidborn vessels have penetrated the anomaly. 10 capital-class warships. 34 interceptors. Energy signatures indicate weaponry adapted for this environment." Jake cursed under his breath. They came prepared. Outside, the black, needle-shaped ships of the Voidborn glided into formation. Their hulls seemed to ripple like shadows in the distorted space. Each vessel bore the crimson eye symbol, silent watchers of the balance. A deep, familiar voice resonated across all channels. "The anomaly is ours. Surrender the anomaly, child, or face extinction." Jake recognized it instantly. "Watcher Prime," he muttered. Zyra's eyes widened. "They call the child the anomaly child. Why?" Jake shook his head. "Because they're afraid of what it represents." He turned to Echo. "Can we open fire?" "New weapon systems detected," Echo replied. "Watcher's technology integrated with ship protocols. Recommend immediate engagement." Jake exhaled sharply. The Raven was no warship, but with these new systems, maybe, just maybe, they stood a chance. "Arm the weapons," he ordered. "Weapon systems online," Echo confirmed. The Voidborn fleet advanced. Red beams arced toward the Raven. Jake yanked the controls, sending the ship into a sharp dive. The energy blasts narrowly missed the hull, crackling against the anomaly's unstable fabric. "Returning fire," Jake said through gritted teeth. The ship's new weapons activated. Twin streams of silver energy shot from the wingtips, colliding with the nearest void-borne interceptor. The blast pierced its hull, and the ship crumpled inward, disappearing in a burst of dark matter. Jake grinned. "Looks like the Watchers gave us some firepower." Zyra's gaze remained fixed ahead. "They're not just giving us weapons. They're testing us." The words chilled Jake more than the enemy fire. The battle for the bridge. The Voidborn regrouped and opened fire again. Their crimson beams rained down in precise, calculated patterns. Jake maneuvered the Raven through the barrage, the ship groaning with each sharp turn. "Echo, target their command ship," Jake commanded. Target locked. Firing. The ship's cannons roared again. The silver beams struck the largest enemy vessel, but this time, the energy dispersed harmlessly across a shimmering barrier. "They adapted," Jake muttered. "Of course they did." The screen displayed a new warning. "Enemy boarding craft launched." Jake cursed. "They're coming for us directly." Zyra's grip tightened on the chair. "They're after the child." The Raven shook as black, claw-like boarding pods latched onto the hull. The metallic screeches echoed through the ship's frame. "Intruder alert," Echo announced. "Multiple Voidborn boarding teams detected. Breach imminent." Jake unstrapped himself, locked down the cockpit. "Zyra, stay here." "No," she said firmly. "I'm coming with you." He hesitated, then nodded. They both grabbed pulse rifles from the weapons locker and rushed toward the main corridor. The lights flickered. The metallic groan of tearing metal grew louder. "Here they come," Jake said. The corridor wall exploded inward. Shards of metal flew in every direction. Through the smoke stepped 3 Voidborn soldiers. Their black armor shimmered like liquid shadow, and the red eyes in their featureless helmets glowed ominously. The lead soldier raised a clawed hand. "Surrender the anomaly, child," it said in a hollow, mechanical voice. Jake fired first. The blue energy burst struck the soldier square in the chest, knocking it backward. The other 2 charged forward. Jake and Zyra fired simultaneously, dropping one. The third leaped with unnatural speed. It landed on Jake, knocking the rifle from his grip. The soldier's clawed hand pressed against Jake's throat. Zyra screamed and fired. The blast hit the creature's head, cracking its helmet. It collapsed beside Jake. Jake coughed and scrambled to his feet. "Thanks." Zyra didn't respond. She was staring down at the dead soldier. Its cracked helmet revealed the skin beneath. Not alien, but pale, with faintly glowing veins. "Human." Jake staggered backward. "That's impossible." Zyra's hands trembled. "They're human. The Voidborn. They're not just some ancient alien race. They're us." The ship shook violently again. "Commander." Echo's voice crackled through the speakers. "New energy signature detected. A ship is emerging from the anomaly's core. The betrayal unveiled." Jake and Zyra rushed back to the cockpit. Outside, the shimmering sphere at the anomaly's center split open like a blooming flower. From within emerged a vast, sleek vessel unlike anything they'd ever seen. Its surface gleamed with silver patterns that shifted like flowing water. The Voidborn stopped firing. The mysterious vessel transmitted a message. The voice that came through was smooth, familiar. "Greetings, Commander Matthews, Princess Zyra. We've been expecting you." Jake froze. That voice. No, it can't be. The view screen displayed the face of Elder Karen, the Zarth advisor who'd helped them escape. The man they had seen die in the sanctuary chamber. "Karan," Idara whispered. "But you." Karen smiled, though his eyes were devoid of warmth. "You saw an illusion, Princess. The Watchers needed your trust. I provided it." Jake clenched his fists. "You're working with the Voidborn." "No," Karen said, voice calm. "The Voidborn work with us. The balance must be preserved. Your child threatens that balance." The surrounding Voidborn ships shifted position, forming a protective sphere around Karen's vessel. Zaira stepped forward, hand on her stomach. "You lied to us. You said the child was special." "And it is," Karen replied. "Special, but dangerous. The child is the bridge between species, yes, but a bridge can become a gateway to chaos, war, and extinction. The Watchers were tasked long ago to prevent that. And now, you must make a choice." The screen zoomed in on Karen's face. "Surrender the child," he said softly, "or we will destroy Sol's Edge, along with every life form within it." The sphere of glowing galaxies behind him pulsed, growing brighter. Jake's mind raced. If the sphere collapsed, the anomaly might implode, obliterating them all. But handing over the child? Never. "Commander," Echo said quietly, "incoming data stream from the anomaly core. It's from the child." "What?" Jake asked. The display changed to show a simple sentence in glowing letters. "Trust the light. The balance is a lie." The child had sent the message. Jake met Zaira's eyes. "We fight," he said. She nodded, eyes glinting with fierce resolve. Jake turned to the controls. "Echo, divert all power to the anomaly core. Let's show them what happens when you threaten our family." Outside, Karen's expression shifted for the first time, from calm to fear. "No, you don't understand. If the core collapses, you'll doom us all." "Yeah?" Jake growled. "Then let's test that balance." He pressed the activation command. The anomaly flared with blinding, white light. The Raven surged forward, directly toward Karen's ship, as the cosmic fabric around them began to crack apart. The trial had truly begun. The last stand. The anomaly around Sol's Edge fractured like cracked glass. Blinding streams of white light split the dark void, tearing through the fabric of space. The Raven hurtled toward the center of the anomaly, its engines roaring against the immense gravitational forces. Jake Matthews gripped the controls with both hands. Sweat dripped down his brow as alarms blared from the console. The ship shuddered violently, panels sparking and flickering under the strain. "Echo, structural integrity," he shouted over the noise. "Down to 48%, the AI responded. Hull fractures increasing. Prolonged exposure will result in catastrophic failure." "Perfect," Jake muttered through clenched teeth. Beside him, Zaira clutched her stomach, eyes wide with pain. The energy swirling outside the ship resonated with the life growing within her. The child's presence pulsed stronger with each passing second, its awareness stretching beyond anything they understood. "The child, it's connected to the anomaly," Zaira said through labored breaths. "It feels the distortion like pressure on its mind." Jake's heart twisted. His unborn child wasn't just a target. It was an anchor for something far bigger than themselves. The comms crackled, and Karen's voice filled the cockpit. "Commander Matthews, cease this madness," the elder shouted. His usually calm tone now crackled with desperation. "If the anomaly collapses, it will shatter the cosmic lattice. Everything here, your ship, your child, and the anomaly itself, will be consumed." Jake grinned grimly. "That's the idea. You think this is a simple battle?" Karen's voice lowered to a cold whisper. "You fight forces beyond your understanding. The child is a cosmic disruption. Its existence draws attention from more than just us." Jake's hands froze on the controls. "What do you mean?" Karen didn't answer. The screen showed his image turning toward something off-camera. His eyes widened. The anomaly core erupted in a blinding flare. And then the universe shifted. The shift. The Raven stopped moving. Jake blinked. The ship was no longer shaking. The alarms went silent. Outside the cockpit window, the chaotic anomaly had vanished. Instead, they floated in a vast, calm expanse of silver-blue mist. "What just happened?" Jake asked. Echo's voice hesitated. "Sensors indicate we are outside conventional spacetime. Location: unknown." Zyra stood, pressing a hand against the window. I've heard of this, from the old Zarth legends. The realm of the balance. The Watcher's true domain. The mist parted. Ahead, a colossal structure emerged from the void, a circular construct miles wide, made of smooth, crystalline material. It rotated slowly, its surface etched with glowing runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. At the structure's center floated a sphere of pure energy. Inside the sphere stood a humanoid figure, tall, slender, and featureless except for two glowing white eyes. The figure raised its hand. The raven jerked forward without engine power, drawn toward the sphere. Echo. Power up shields. Jake barked. Shields unresponsive, the AI said. The ship stopped directly before the sphere. The figure's eyes flared. Its voice resonated through the ship, low and resonant, vibrating in their bones. The trial has begun. The balance demands judgment. The trial. Jake and Zyra were suddenly no longer on the ship. They stood on a vast, black stone platform surrounded by swirling mist. The glowing sphere floated before them. The figure stepped forward, its form becoming clearer with each step. Its skin was smooth like obsidian, with faint white veins beneath the surface. No mouth moved, but its voice was clear. You stand before the arbiter of the balance. You, who dared to create the anomaly child. Zyra raised her chin, voice trembling but resolute. We didn't create the child as a weapon. We created it from love. The arbiter tilted its head. Love, an ancient, unpredictable force. It binds worlds yet fractures order. The Voidborn warned you. Their purpose is preservation. Yours is chaos. Jake stepped forward. We didn't ask for any of this. We didn't break your balance. We just fell in love. Is that a crime in this galaxy? The arbiter's eyes dimmed slightly. Love is not the crime. Creation beyond boundaries is. The child is not merely a hybrid. It is a beacon. Beacon, Jake echoed. A signal across cosmic layers. It calls to others. Forces older than us. Forces that consume unity and sow entropy. Zyra gasped. The child is summoning something. Unintentionally, the arbiter said. But the consequence remains. If the child survives, the gateway will open, and they will come. Jake exchanged a troubled glance with Zyra. Who will come? The arbiter's eyes flared. The mist around them shifted, forming a colossal vision. In the mist, an enormous insectoid figure loomed, a creature with elongated limbs, an exoskeleton of shimmering black crystal, and eyes like twin collapsing stars. The eclipsed, the arbiter whispered, devourers of harmony. They destroy the Eldoran Confederation. The Ivanti Nexus. They drift beyond the cosmic veil, waiting for a crack in the balance. Your child's energy is that crack. The mist dissolved. The arbiter stepped closer, eyes locking on Zyra's stomach. The baby kicked hard in response. The solution is simple, the arbiter said softly. The anomaly child must not be born. Jake's stomach dropped. His body tensed as instinct flooded through him. No. One life to save countless billions, the arbiter said. We offer you this choice. Surrender the child, or we will destroy this realm, and the child with it. The stone beneath them trembled. Lightning crackled through the mist. You're giving us a choice, Jake asked. Choice is the foundation of the balance, the arbiter replied. But the outcome remains inevitable. Life demands sacrifice. Jake's mind raced. Sacrifice. The word echoed in his head. He remembered the child's cryptic message. The balance is a lie. You're lying, Jake said suddenly. The arbiter's glowing eyes narrowed. Explain. Jake pointed at the platform. You said we're here to save the balance. But if you were so confident about your precious balance, why bother giving us a choice? Why test us at all? The arbiter was silent. Jake's pulse quickened. He stepped protectively in front of Zyra. Because you're afraid. The child isn't a threat to life. It's a threat to your control. The mist churned violently. The Arbiter lifted its hand. Enough, it said. Energy crackled through the air. Jake lunged for Kyra as blinding light engulfed them. The final battle. They reappeared on the Raven. Outside the cockpit, the Voidborn fleet surrounded the Watcher's sphere. The Arbiter's ship hovered at the anomaly's core, glowing brighter. "Commander," Echo's voice returned. "The anomaly core is destabilizing. If it collapses, the Voidborn and Watchers will be destroyed. But so will we." Jake's mind raced. The Watchers feared the child's power. But the child had communicated through the anomaly. It had reached out. He placed his hand on Kyra's stomach. The warmth pulsed against his palm. "Little one," Jake whispered, "I know you're scared. But if you can hear me, we need your help." The warmth intensified. Outside, the anomaly surged. The child's energy radiated outward. The Voidborn ships faltered, their hulls cracking as if the energy rejected them. The Arbiter's voice screamed across all channels. "This cannot be." The energy formed a radiant bridge between the anomaly core and the Raven. The child's voice, soft yet clear, spoke through the ship's speakers. "The balance is not unity. It is fear. Fear ends today." The anomaly imploded, releasing a wave of luminous energy that shattered the Voidborn fleet and dissolved the Watcher's constructs. The Raven tumbled through space, caught in the shockwave. Then, silence. Aftermath. The ship stabilized above Mars' orbit. Jake and Sarah stared at the screen, which now displayed only peaceful stars. "It's over?" Jake asked. Sarah nodded slowly. The child closed the gateway. Her stomach shifted. A calming warmth filled the cabin. Jake exhaled deeply. "We survived." But the child had done more than survive. It had rewritten the cosmic rules. And somewhere beyond the stars, the eclipsed had felt the gateway slam shut. For now. The new dawn. The stars above Mars were unchanged, distant, eternal points of light scattered across the black canvas of space. But for Jake Matthews and Princess Thyra, everything was different now. The Raven drifted silently in orbit, its hull scared and systems barely functional. The ship had weathered cosmic forces that no human craft was ever designed to face. It had emerged from the trial battered but intact, like its crew. Jake leaned back in the pilot's chair, chest heaving. His fingers trembled as they hovered over the controls. The fight was over, but his heart hadn't accepted it yet. Beside him, Kyra rested in her seat. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the dim light. Her hands remained protectively over her stomach, where their unborn child stirred with a soft, reassuring pulse. "Echo," Jake said, voice hoarse. "Status report." The AI's voice crackled through the speakers. "All hostile contacts eliminated. Anomaly core collapsed. Spatial integrity restored. Solar system secure." Jake exhaled. "The Voidborn. Destroyed." Echo confirmed. "No remaining signatures detected." Jake rubbed his eyes, struggling to process it. The Voidborn, the galaxy's ancient nightmare, were gone. Not by human firepower or Zarnithian technology, but by the unborn life within Kyra. Kyra opened her eyes, voice soft. The child did it. She felt the fear of the Watchers and the hatred of the Voidborn. She knew what needed to be done. Jake turned to her. Kyra gave a faint smile. "I can feel it. She's a girl." Jake chuckled breathlessly. "A daughter." He placed a hand over Kyra's. The warmth of life pulsed beneath his touch. "She saved us." "Yes," Kyra whispered, "but something's changed." The warmth beneath their hands shifted, faint, almost imperceptible, like a distant echo of something vast. The anomaly was gone, but the child's connection to the cosmic forces remained. And beyond Mars, unseen by any telescope, something ancient stirred. 1 month later, Earth. The birth of the hybrid child became the biggest story in human history. News broadcasts declared it the dawn of a new era. Crowds gathered outside Earth Council headquarters, waving flags of unity. Some saw the child as a miracle, a living symbol of the long-held dream of interspecies cooperation. Others were afraid. Humanity survived on division for so long, Jake said, watching a news broadcast from a hospital window. Now the galaxy wants to rewrite everything overnight. Zarth sat on the bed beside him, cradling their newborn daughter. The child's skin was pale with faint silver veins beneath the surface. Her eyes, when she opened them, glowed softly with a pale, star-like light. Jake smiled down at her. "Aurora," he said softly. Zarth returned the smile. "Aurora, the light after darkness." Aurora stirred and opened her eyes. The star-like irises reflected the overhead lights like twin galaxies. Jake felt a faint whisper in his mind, a warm, curious presence. He wasn't sure if it came from the child or his imagination. Zarth's face darkened as she turned back to the screen. The broadcast showed images of protests on Mars. "Some fear her," she said softly. "The Voidborn convinced the galaxy that hybrid life is unnatural. Those beliefs won't vanish overnight." Jake's jaw tightened. "They'll learn. She's not a threat. She's hope." But in the shadows of the galaxy, others saw something different. The Hidden Council. Deep within an unmarked base on Jupiter's moon Ganymede, 6 figures sat around a holographic table. Their faces remained hidden beneath black veils. The hologram displayed an image of Aurora, her glowing eyes staring directly at them. "The child survived," one voice hissed. "Impossible," another replied. The anomaly collapsed. The Voidborn fleet was annihilated. "And yet she remains," said the tallest figure. "The beacon has been lit. The eclipsed will have felt it." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. "What do we do?" asked the youngest member. The leader leaned forward. "We do what we've always done. Protect the balance. We stop the child before the gateway reopens." The growing power. Aurora grew faster than expected. At 1 month old, she could hold her head up and track movement. By 2 months, she was crawling and occasionally levitating small objects. By 3 months, she could speak simple words. Jake and Sarah worked hard to give her a normal childhood, but nothing about Aurora was normal. One evening, Jake sat in the nursery, holding her while she played with a glowing toy drone. The toy hovered around the room, darting playfully as Aurora giggled. "You're showing off again," Jake teased. Aurora looked up at him with wide eyes. "Daddy, stars talk." Jake froze. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Aurora pointed to the window. "Stars whisper. They say, the watcher's scared, the eclipsed waking." Jake's mouth went dry. He set the toy down and tapped his comm. "Echo, scan for anomaly signatures near the solar perimeter." The AI paused. No anomaly detected, but gravitational irregularities near the Oort cloud suggest activity. Jake hugged Aurora tightly. The return. The first gravitational spike came 3 days later. Telescopes detected a distortion beyond Neptune. Scientists dismissed it as cosmic noise. Jake and Sarah knew better. Aurora grew restless, crying in her sleep. When Jake asked her what was wrong, she answered with a single phrase. "They found me." On a secure channel, Jake contacted Director Stevens, the Earth Council's head of defense. "Sir, the Voidborn might be gone, but something worse is coming." Stevens' face appeared on screen. The man looked skeptical. "Commander, the anomaly's collapse ended the threat. We have no evidence." Suddenly, alarms blared. Red warnings filled the screen. "Sir," Jake asked. Stevens turned his head to someone off-screen. "What the hell is that?" The live feed cut to an orbital defense camera. Beyond Neptune, space fractured. A colossal, jagged rift tore open. From within emerged a fleet of shadowy ships, unlike the Voidborn's sleek design. These ships looked organic, their surfaces glistening like obsidian insect shells. Their eyes weren't red, but black pits that devoured light. Jake's blood turned cold. The largest ship emitted a low guttural sound. The sound crossed the vacuum of space, vibrating through planetary defense systems. Aurora screamed and covered her ears. The sound wasn't random. It was a message. The bridge awoke the gate. The eclipsed have come. The screen went dark. Jake stood and grabbed his rifle. Zarth held Aurora tightly. "Jake, what do we do?" Jake kissed her forehead. "We fight. We've done it before." Aurora whimpered. "They're scared, Daddy. The eclipsed are scared of me." Jake knelt beside her, heart racing. "Why, sweetheart?" Aurora's glowing eyes met his. Her voice sounded older, more certain. "Because on the bridge," she said. "And bridges don't just connect worlds. They break walls." She extended a tiny hand toward the window. Outside, a single star flared brighter than the rest, then shattered, releasing a shockwave that raced toward the anomaly. The eclipsed ships retreated into the rift. The gateway slammed shut. Aurora fell asleep in Xyra's arms, exhausted. Jake exhaled shakily. "They're afraid of her." Xyra kissed Aurora's forehead. "She's just a child." Jake shook his head. "No, she's something more." Epilogue. In the depths of the Andromeda Galaxy, a colossal hive-like structure vibrated with energy. The eclipsed overmind stirred. "The bridge lives," it hissed across the cosmic void. "Prepare the swarm." The stars trembled.